contracts done in the history of the game.
Really?
I have a comparison. It's to Tyler Glasnow, who the Dodgers gave an extension to last year after acquiring him from the Dodgers. He was another guy, high-end stuff, but just had been hurt a lot.
Right.
But even when you look at this, 529 and 2/3 innings, it's still 300 more innings than Crochet. And one other thing, besides Glasnow, every other pitcher who has ever thrown, who has gotten a 9-figure deal, has thrown at least 800 innings. So we're in this area because where you are really betting on a stock based on last year's performance. And last year's performance was terrific. But consider what we're dealing with. Relief pitcher, miss a year for Tommy John, relief pitcher, great starter.
Right.
That is his run up here. Do you believe it? If you believe it, this might, even with the numbers you say, it might turn out to be a great contract for Boston.
Well, there you go. That's Joel Sherman, longtime baseball writer, talking about the 6-year, $170 million contract given to Garrett Crochet that he has agreed to terms with on the for the Red Sox for the next, well, potentially 6 years. He does have an opt-out after seasons 5. But this is where we're going to start tonight on the Baseball Hour, 617-779-0985. We'll open up the phone lines right away, and let me tell you, we are only with you for a half hour tonight. Only a half hour. We'll turn it over to Bruins pregame at 6:30. So the conversations are going to be these. Crochet, the contract, the Red Sox willingness to do it, the value of the contract, too much, too little. Are you happy they did it? Do you think they're idiots like Danny and Quincy does? Or tell me how you feel about the deal. And what does it signify to you, if anything? I heard a lot of people saying last night that it signifies the Red Sox are serious. I have a bunch of thoughts on the Crochet contract, and then in the second half of the program, starting at about 6:15, we'll get to Rafael Devers, his continued problems. There was a report on ESPN today and a photo circulating on the internet. I originally saw it on X, formerly Twitter, showing Devers in the batter's box. Mark DeRosa was doing an analysis of his swing, and it basically looked like a before and after photo of Devers as it pertains to his weight. Let me just say that the photo they put up on MLB Network was not flattering of Rafael Devers. So that'll be the second part of the conversation. Again, 617-779-0985. Here is my big gripe with some people as it pertains to Garrett Crochet. Again, 6 years, $170 million, an average of a little over $28 million a season. Jim Murray, if I said to you, oh, I'm sorry, Murray's actually not working. Jimmy Stewart, he's sitting next to me. I got confused, Jimmy. Jimmy Stewart, if I said to you, how many innings has Garrett Crochet pitched in his major league career, what would you say?
Less than 300.
Okay, 224, I think it is. I'll get you the exact number. 224 innings. And this is the one that I did not know about. In his entire professional career, that includes college and minor leagues, Garrett Crochet has pitched 368 innings. 368 innings. The Red Sox gave him 6 years and $170 million. He's already had Tommy John surgery. He's 25. I have heard people say Garrett Crochet is a very hard guy. Felger said this the other day. This part of it. And I've heard other people say it too. Garrett Crochet is a really different guy to peg on that contract. And so as a result, you just can't give him that kind of deal. Wait until the end of the year. See how he pitches and goes from there. My personal feeling? Pay him. Pay him. Are we really going to sit here after bitching about the Red Sox not spending money for the last 5 years? Or not spending what they had been spending for the last 5 years. Honestly, it wasn't that long, 5. It was probably closer to 3. But nonetheless, falling to the middle of the pack in payroll. Are we really going to bitch about that and then complain that they gave Garrett Crochet too much money? Is that really how people feel? Because I have a hard time believing that you do. I'd like to think you're happy about it. That is an indication of a new era in Red Sox history, and certainly under this ownership, that now they are, quote-unquote, back in business and legitimately vying for championships. So here's what I'll tell you on the deal. As Joel Sherman pointed out, no pitcher in history with Crochet's credentials, meaning 4 years in the big leagues, but relatively no experience on the mound because of injuries and pitching out of the bullpen. No pitcher in Major League history has ever thrown fewer than 800 innings and received a contract of 9 figures, meaning $100 million or greater. Crochet is the first. So the Red Sox have literally blown the salary structure out of the water as it pertains to guys who are arbitration eligible and not yet at free agency. What we could call 0 to 4 guys or 4 years of service time, they have blown it out of the water. And my answer is this. If you were going to trade Braden Montgomery and Kyle Teal, both of whom were first-round draft picks, and 2 other minor leaguers to the Chicago White Sox, and then not pay Garrett Crochet in an extension, you were going to give up those 4 young players, 2 of whom were taken in the first round. You were going to trade 4 of them, get Crochet for 2 years, and then potentially lose them on the open market? I tell you, you should be fired as a GM immediately. What the hell did you trade for him for if you weren't going to give him the contract? Of course you give him the contract. And I would say, all things considered, I don't think it's really that outrageous a deal. They had to buy up at least 3 years of free agency. If Crochet pitches like he pitched last year and hits the open market, he's getting $30 million a year. That's more than half the deal right there. And you've got to pay him for 2 arbitration years on top of it. So I look at that and I say, well, that's easy. You give him the money. If you just paid him year to year in those 5 years, he's going to make something close to 150. Somewhere in that area. I mean, to me, no brainer. I also want to get to the Rafael Devers situation. I don't know if you saw, if those of you, or if all of you have seen, or those of you who have will know what I'm talking about. But Mark DeRosa of the MLB Network did a study on Rafael Devers' hitting mechanics on the network today, on the MLB Network. They showed 2 photos side by side of Devers standing in the batter's box holding the bat by his head. In one of the photos, he was holding the bat a little bit higher than the other. But believe me when I tell you, that is not going to be what people focus on today, nor was it, or tomorrow. Devers looked gigantic in the picture on the right. He looks huge. He came into Freudian slip. He came into camp saying he weighed 240 pounds. And I'm going to tell you that the number had to be higher. I bet you he was closer to 260. And when you see this photo, you'll know what we're talking about because Devers is definitely out of shape.
Maz, that's 290, 300.
So he might be, Jimmy. I don't rule that out. I mean, again, it's hard to know unless you're standing next to him. But believe me when I tell you, his weight's an issue. And so the question then becomes, how worried are you about Rafael Devers? Did the Red Sox make a mistake by keeping him over Mookie Betts, et cetera? There are a million angles you can go with this thing. But believe me when I tell you, Devers looks so out of shape and came in so unprepared to start the season that now he's paying the price for it. So are the Red Sox, which is the downside. But if there's anyone who's getting hurt by this, it's Devers. And so before you suggest that he is somehow doing this on purpose to stick it to the Red Sox, I'll say that last part again, the biggest damage in this story is being done to Rafael Devers. The Red Sox aren't taking a lot of heat for this. Devers is. Again, 617-779-0985. We'll kick it off tonight with Sean in Colorado. Go ahead, Sean.
Tony, how's it going?
Good.
Just wanted to talk Crochet extension. I think it's a great thing. I mean, the big thing is you shouldn't be worried about the money they're giving up. They should have done their homework. They should have done their research when they traded for the guy. The big risk is unloading that prospect capital. Once you did that, you should have already done your research. You should have already known that this is a guy you want to give the money to when you unloaded the prospect. On top of that, you talk about the innings he's had. Spin zone, maybe. I see it as a positive. That's less miles on his arm. Would you rather pay for what the guy's going to do, or would you rather pay a guy like Max Fried for what he's done? Because personally, I'd rather pay the guy for what he's going to do rather than what he's already done.
Sean, I'm going to let you go because that last point is a good one and it's an important one. And Joel Sherman said this on the MLB Network. And again, I think Joel still works for the New York Post. I don't think he's changed employers. So I said earlier, he's a longtime baseball writer. Joel has always had a really analytical mind. But he said this, in a good analytical mind as it came to baseball. But he said this on his stint with MLB Network, and I think it's a good point. When you say, are you paying a guy for his past or paying him for his future? How many times have teams let players go and said, well, look, just because he accomplished that up to now, he's aging. We're not going to pay for past performance. We're paying for future performance. In the past, if a guy had a lot of innings, teams would look at him and say, hey, this guy's pitched 200 innings for X number of years, 8 years in a row. He's a horse. We'll take him on because he's durable. This proves some level of durability. You know what they do now? They look at that guy and say, wait a minute. That's a lot of tread on those tires. That's a lot of miles on that car. So I pay less for a used car. I don't pay more for it. That would be stupid. And so teams stopped giving out big contracts to veteran guys who weren't necessarily elite. And even then, when they did give out contracts to guys who were elite, they were usually short term. A couple of years, 1 year. Justin Verlander got a $40 million contract, I think, for one season. Max Scherzer has had similar circumstances. Those sorts of contracts. So if you're going to do that, doesn't it make sense with a 25-year-old left-hander who can strike out 12, 13 batters in 9 innings, 12 or 13 batters per 9 innings, and walk only 3 or under 3? That guy should be worth a lot at that stage of his career? And the answer is yes. So the Red Sox are betting on Garrett Crochet. Again, and this part, again, you should really put emphasis on this part. The contract is unprecedented for a guy with his experience or really lack thereof. Unprecedented. And I know this is an unusual thing for me to say, but I give the Red Sox credit for it. I give them a lot of credit for it. They made the determination on Crochet before they made the trade. Once you made the trade, the decision was made to pay him. I also wonder about how this deal got done, which I'll get to, and we'll get to Rafael Devers when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
The Baseball Hour with Tony Mass.
Hey, it's Mass for Bigelow Tea. You know what I like more than anything? Choices. So what does that have to do with Bigelow Tea? Well, Bigelow has lots of options.
we acquired Garrett, we did so with this idea that the team, the rotation, could benefit from someone who could pitch at the top, who could anchor the rotation, and obviously he's a guy that had a great year last year as a starting pitcher. But I think more than some of the obvious stuff was just how much swing and miss he was able to generate, the consistency of the stuff throughout the season. At 25 years old, we feel like his prime is still in front of him. And so he was someone that we were very interested in securing and making a long-term commitment to. And these conversations have gone on for months now. And, there were times where we felt like we were really close and other times where we felt like we were miles apart. And I know I've talked about how anytime the Red Sox have been in a position to this ownership group, John, Tom, Mike, Sam, have supported aggressive moves to ensure that the window of contention was as wide open as it could possibly be and could extend as long as possible. I think this is another piece of evidence toward that.
That is Craig Breslow on Nesson talking about the Crochet contract. A couple of things about this that I want to get to first, and I say this with as much respect as possible because I know how it's going to come off, but it is what it is. And that is, I wonder how much of a hand Theo Epstein had in this negotiation. So Epstein has done 1 million deals. He's done big ones. He's done small ones. He knows the agents inside out. He understands the value of a player based on what the market is, the service time, all that stuff. Craig Breslow got hired as a GM last year for the first year and frankly had no experience as one before, had to learn on the fly. So now the second year comes along and same deal. And when he negotiated the Alex Bregman contract, he needed help. Jen McCaffrey of The Athletic wrote a story that he consulted Epstein during that negotiation. I'd be willing to bet they did the same thing on this deal. And can I just say, I hope they did. If Theo is a sounding board and Theo knew you're going to be able to sign this guy, do your research ahead of time. I hope he's giving them cheat notes for these trades and negotiations. I hope they're using him in that way. And Breslow just doesn't have the experience. I don't know. Has he ever negotiated with Crochet's agent? I don't even know who Crochet's agent is, but I know it's not Boris because Boris wouldn't have signed this deal. But you get the idea. So that's number one. Secondly, and let me just say this quickly, the window of contention that Breslow talked about, see, my opinion about what the Red Sox are going to be now over the next 5-7 years, and I say 5, give or take, could be 3, could be 7, so let's call it 5. And I know that they used to think in 5-year windows. But over the next 5 years, Crochet's 25, Abreu's 25, Casas is 25, Campbell's 22, Myers 22, Anthony's 20. So that's your nucleus. And if you want to go back to like 2015 or 2016, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, Jackie Bradley, Rafael Devers. So what did the Red Sox do at that time? They spent on David Price, and then that wasn't enough, and they went out and got Chris Sale. So let's see what happens. Here, they got Crochet, and they spent on him. And if that proves to be not enough, if they get in the playoffs and lose, well, then my guess is they'll go out and spend on more pitching. I hope. There's no way to guarantee that. But it's now the beginning of the next era with the next core. And one of those guys is Devers, who I think has everybody scared at the moment. Larry in New York on Devers. Go ahead, Larry.
Hey, Mass. I'd like to suggest an idea regarding Devers and get your reaction. Send Devers down to the minors to learn first base and get his timing down. Then bring him back, let's say, in a couple of weeks. Put Casas as DH against righties. Ref Snyder as DH against lefties. And my point is, look, the Sox mess with Devers' head. He's just too young and too energetic to sit around on the dugout waiting for his next at-bat.
Yeah, Larry, I'm going to let you go just because I have other people who want to get on too. We only have a few minutes. But here's what I would tell you. Don't overthink it. Okay, don't overthink it. The idea of sending him down to the minors, I said the same thing yesterday. He needs at-bats is what he needs, although I do see some improvement. I said this yesterday. I see some improvement in his at-bats the last couple of days. Fouling balls off is usually a good indication when a guy starts to get right again. He starts getting on balls before he starts roping them all over the place. His timing's getting better. But they're not going to do that. Cora's already said Devers is going to play. He's in the lineup. He's not going to take him out. So now, some of that's probably Devers. Just keep putting me out there. And when it pops and he's good, they're fine. In the interim, he's got to lose some weight. I don't think he can play anywhere right now with the way he looks. Justin in Shrewsbury on Garrett Crochet. Good, Justin?
Hey, Tony, thanks for taking my call. So they definitely learned from their mistakes by, not locking up Mookie Betts when they could and keep driving him out. And they, secured their, core, their ace. And this also helps out, the window the next few years. I do agree with your points on that. I just think, people are saying it's too much money, but it's like he's 25, he's entering his prime, and he's a stud, a bona fide ace.
Yeah, Justin, they have the money. They have the money. And I'll tell you what I give the Red Sox credit for. Here's what I give the Red Sox credit for. Back in 2006, when they needed a pitcher, the two guys available were Josh Beckett and A.J. Burnett, both with the Marlins. One was going to be more expensive than the other because you had to trade for him, and the other was a free agent. So in other words, you were going to have to pay both, but to get one of them, you were also going to have to give up talent, and they went for the more expensive guy who was better. I think they basically did the same thing this offseason. Who's the best guy? So they didn't do it by cost, they did it by talent. Sean in Marlboro. Sean, go ahead.
Hey, Maz, there's a bunch of things I could talk about.
Well, just I think one, please.
Yeah, well, it's all in Crochet, but I think the biggest thing here is, like you had mentioned, old contracts versus new. They throw different. They're throwing 100+ consistently now. When the guys were pitching 200 innings for 5 years straight and they were workhorses, they were throwing 95 consistently. I think that's probably the biggest, just change in baseball between rewarding past performance versus, not giving those contracts out now.
Sean, it's an excellent point. Guys blow out quicker now. They blow out quicker. And frankly, not a lot of them know how to pitch because they're being urged to throw with max velocity all the time. Their arms blow out. So I would hope the Red Sox would look at Garrett Crochet and say, hey, instead of throwing 99, can we get away with 96 and you have the 99 when you need it? Do you have to throw 99 on every pitch? Use it when you need it. Quickly, Dave in Abington on Yoshida. Again, Dave, quickly.
So today, Yoshida was reported that he's been cleared to resume baseball activities and took 50 swings today. So where does he fit in the equation, Maz? Is he going to be like a DH, or are they going to combine the salaries of our current DH and him, and that's going to be the salary of our DH this season?
No, I think it's more the second thing. I don't think Yoshida's, I don't think Devers is going back to third or Yoshida's going to start. I think Cora will pick his spots with him, and that'll be that. Bruins coming up tonight again. We had a short